Welcome back to Philippines Uncut. I'm Chris Ablan. I am sitting in for Buddy Kunanan. Tonight's show is all about post-Typhoon Yolanda and rehabilitation efforts in disaster-stricken areas. This evening, our guest is prominent architect June Palafox, and he shared with us some insights on what he observed in Tacloban, and later on we'll find out the other areas he's been helping in. And well, we do know that one of the suggestions of Architect Palafox is if you're living in a coastal area, it's a big no-no for us to build our houses and our buildings near the seashore. At least build them above the floodlines. And there's already historical data on the floodlines, so we should know better when we build our houses and our buildings. Another suggestion by Architect Palafox was with the bunk houses built by the national government. He observed that they were substandard, and he made the proper suggestion earlier this month. And it's good to hear from the news and to read in the papers that the national government heeded his call. And instead, the rehabilitation czar, Senator Lacson, has recommended that instead of building bunk houses, at least the next best thing would actually just to give materials to the recipients, and they themselves build their own houses. Architect Palafox, can you elaborate on us why is it better for government to give the materials than build the bunk houses themselves?
Yeah, I think so. There's also equity of the beneficiaries.
Right.
Their sweat equity, they also help. And as long as we should set the minimum performance standards, the proper construction methods, and so on, and with what happened with the bunk houses, undersized, substandard, and I'm told also under specs.
Right.
So even Secretary Singson agreed together with Senator Lacson that they will just give the materials. And Chuchi, that organization, they did that right after Yolanda. Like families of 5, they gave 15,000 pesos to fix their homes. And then I think 12,000 for family of 3, family of 2, 8,000. Aside from the cash for work, 500.
I saw the lines. They were very, very long lines.
500 pesos per person, and they were feeding 30,000 people a day.
Yes.
And Chuchi, they already donated, I think, more than 1 billion pesos for that area. And Chuchi had always been in many post-disaster areas. I was with them in Iran, Sri Lanka, and the Philippines, and elsewhere in the world. And I learned a lot from them also. Even the sequencing of, first it should be rescue and recovery, then relief, then rehab and reconstruction. I think what happened here, we started with the relief. So it seems, I could be wrong, no?
Right.
Instead of rescuing, recovering the dying and the dead, we went immediately for relief.
Right.
And then the other one also, Chuchi, they rented 52 heavy equipment to clear the streets, backhoes, and dump trucks. So that's the way to do it.
LGUs can learn a lot from what the Buddhist Chuchi Foundation did for Tacloban.
Yeah.
They hired, I think, 46 trucks and other heavy equipment just to clear the roads. Since there was a problem with clearing the roads. And then, like you said a while ago, they distributed cash for work and also financial assistance. And I asked my friend, the city administrator in Tacloban, Attorney Texon Lim.
Yes. He was a volunteer of Chuchi many years ago.
Yes. I mean, what was the logic behind giving away money? And he shared with me that in Chuchi Foundation, they understand that economy has to be pumped right back up. And so, if you give them financial assistance, whether or not they need it, it's good for the local economy so that business can go back to normal.
Yeah. And there are nice stories about it. Like one family was given 16,000 mistakenly. They returned the 1,000 pesos. Then survivors 2, she was given 15,000. She went back to Chuchi and returned 7,000 pesos because she said only she and her grandmother survived. So there was honesty even among the poor. And a lot of lessons learned. Then another one went to thank Chuchi because the spare cars that he got, now he has a Shopao business.
Wow.
So even livelihood. And it was actually the master, the founder of Chuchi. When I was their architect, they were my clients in fact.
Yes.
First I was not a volunteer.
Yes.
And he asked me, when you do the transient homes for the survivors,
Yes.
design something architecturally that you're willing to put your family.
Yes.
So human dignity,
Mm.
then gender sensitive. And then like schools in Bam, Iran, there was a big earthquake. So we designed the schools as earthquake intensity 10, even if the building code requires only intensity 8. So it's really building back better.
Yes.
It's possible. So we can learn good lessons from best practices, and we can learn also from mistakes made. Like one was access for the relief. We are an archipelago, and we had to wait for the Americans, the British, the Japanese, the Chinese, the Germans to make the place accessible. And maybe, although they say hindsight is perfect vision, we could have us all the shipping lines, the fishing magnates, and maybe even the smugglers, because they can land anywhere without port.
Yes.
And we could have used the shoreline. So, and in Aceh, Indonesia, the rehabs are, what he did was the first hour, he commanded all the bulldozers to clean the streets. So there's really a science to it that we can learn from. And I hope all of this, I'll try to document all of this, and again, submit it to the government and through Secretary Lacson. And a lot of lessons learned. And in fact, we are now a laboratory for many universities all over the world. Lessons learned from mistakes made,
Yes.
including the poor urban planning of Metro Manila.
Yes.
I get students from all over the world as OJTs, apprentices in my office. And sometimes they ask, what's wrong? So you can really show them what's wrong and how could you address it.
I mean, right now the spotlight is in the Visayas, like
Yeah.
you said, and all over the world people have taken notice. And you mentioned earlier during the break that not only is there a spirit of volunteerism amongst local architects, engineers, and other people who just want to do good, but you also have people from abroad volunteering their services in the rehabilitation and in the replanning of our cities and municipalities affected by this disaster. Can you tell us what organizations, what kind of people have approached you to volunteer their services?
Several, like Chuchi, they're doing very well. The Urban Land Institute, Washington, D.C.,
Okay.
they offer their help. And then even my alma mater, Harvard Graduate School of Design, they offer their help. The American Institute of Architects, American Planning Association, and of course the European, the biggest donor is the UK, in fact.
Yes.
And of course the international agencies like UNDP,
Yes.
USAID, and all of those, all coming together. And for there are also volunteers, aside from the goodness of their heart and
Yes.
generosity, there are also volunteers that, especially the younger ones, I think this will be good for their biodata in the future.
Yes.
This will be good for their portfolio, even companies. But we should set a minimum performance standards, because
Right.
not everybody had experience in rehab, reconstruction, replanning disaster areas.
Because we might repeat the same mistakes.
We might repeat the same mistakes. So we should have a platform for coordination,
Right.
and maybe a framework concept plan,
Right.
minimum standards. Like many of the projects we do elsewhere in the world, the road right of way,
Yes.
it should be 1/3 for trees and landscaping, 1/3 for pedestrians and bicycles, and only 1/3 for moving traffic lanes.
Right.
Look at our roads in Manila. EDSA, there's nothing for the pedestrian, nothing
Yes.
for the bicycle.
They actually
And
chop
there-
off the pedestrian
and-
lane for more cars.
Yeah, and there are no trees. And in fact, many of the places we do elsewhere in the world, like for every car you own, you must plant 17 trees. This is for Dubai, Saudi Arabia, all of those. In the Philippines, for the master plan communities we do, every car you own, you must plant 10 trees.
Right.
It takes about 10 trees to recover the oxygen out of the carbon monoxide per car.
Right.
So I'm saying now, best practices we can do it in these areas. Like I was part of the original urban planning for Dubai, 1977. So we transformed a desert into a garden city,
Right.
and from the third world to the first world in 10 years.
Right.
Because there was ingredients for success. There must be political will
Right.
with with visionary leadership,
Mhm.
uh, good planning and good design,
Mhm.
and thirdly, good governance. These are the minimum. And another triple bottom line that I always crusade for is people first. The jobs, especially for benefit people first. Then planet Earth, the environment.
Right.
Then later on, maybe we can talk about profits or economic goals. But right now, it should be solutions-based, solutions-driven, not business-driven.
Right.
And I'm glad many of these conglomerates with their foundations, they have been approached as development sponsors.
Right.
Let's say one conglomerate will take care of this town,
Right.
these barangays,
Right.
and the planning should be comprehensive in terms of time, immediate action, short-term, medium-term, or long-term, in terms of sectors like housing, health, employment, healthcare. It should also be comprehensive in terms of disciplines like the sciences, architecture, urban planning, even legal profession, management experts. So interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary. And it cannot be any more piecemeal.
Right.
Piecemeal.
And you're consulting with these organizations, these corporations,
Yes, and
and
also
that's nice because, like I mentioned during the break, that at least when they do a particular project, you can tell them, oh, this other NGO is already
Yeah.
doing that, this other corporation is doing that. So at least
yeah.
it's done properly and coordinated.
Yeah, the Secretary Lacson, part of our original conversation, November 30, before accepted the job, transparency and accountability. So they will be setting up a website, the donors, the beneficiaries, and he asked all the local governments to submit like a bridal gift list, their needs and wants, and look for a corresponding sponsor.
And Senator Lacson,
It will be in the website.
right, so that
And
there's no duplication.
duplication, and also prevent corruption.
Right.
Because I heard there were some donations, I don't know how true it is, that did not reach the beneficiaries. And people have been reporting me that, and we just move forward. And that's what Aceh, Indonesia did. They targeted $4 billion for donations. Everything was in a website. You know how much they raised? $7 billion because of the transparency and accountability.
I've never been to Aceh. How is Aceh now? Is it after what
Yeah,
happened before?
It's much better now, but not many people went back.
Right.
So I heard there were more dwelling units built
Than occupants.
than people, because not everybody came back.
Right.
So that's also a lesson learned. Let's not also overestimate that
Right.
maybe some have left already,
Right.
looking for
Have been traumatized.
traumatized. Yeah, because as I shared with you, I think you must have felt the same way. That the first time I went to Tacloban, Palu, and that was 3 weeks after Yolanda, December
Yes.
2. I could really feel the pain, the suffering, the destruction and death. But what was uplifting was my first 27 hours, I met volunteers from 32 countries.
Wow.
My first 27 hours. So the rest of the world, they love us. They want to help. And in fact, another nice story from Chuchi, a prisoner in Chino, California. He heard about the victims of Yolanda. He gave out all his food stamps and coffee stamps, and they auctioned it in California. We were able to raise $70,000
Wow.
from a prisoner. So there are a lot of good news that shareable also.
Right.
Yeah.
But the problem really is coordinating
Yeah, coordinating.
and making sure that no money is lost somewhere else.
Yes.
And if you may, we could go back to the principles you mentioned earlier. You started off by saying that there has to be transparency,
Accountability and
Right.
good governance.
right? And then second is
No band-aid solutions, building back better, safer, sustainable, and smarter.
and
And
what
then-
are the other
And
principles,
then
architect?
immediate action, short-term, medium-term, long-term, everything must be done right. And borrow from the best practices in the world. Because Secretary Lacson, I think he's also handicapped. Because when the first time we spoke, he was going to be a rehab czar.
Right.
So I thought he would be like Douglas MacArthur in the reconstruction of Japan with the Marshall Plan.
Yes.
And
He had
and
back
then-
then he had a lot of power.
then when he took the oath, he became just a coordinator.
Right.
That's why he has to depend on the private sector. So it's more like, instead of a Douglas MacArthur, he became like Eisenhower, trying to coordinate the allies.
Right.
So, so his limited authority. He doesn't even hold the money.
Yes.
So he has to ask from the different government agencies to fund this, to prioritize this. That's why the private sector is there, because the private sector also, the thinking behind is, I think this government has only 840 days. And then when
Left in its
yeah,
in
when,
the term.
when Senator Ping Lacson said, when he accepted the job, November 30, when we spoke, day before he spoke the job, he said he only has 20,000 hours. So
That's not a lot.
after 20,000 hours, who will take over?
Yes.
We from private citizens, from the private sector, to make sure the next government will at least recognize the effort of the last 800, 900 days. And there will be a good transition and institutional memory.
Yes. So the problem of Senator Lacson right now is to iron out a short-term and long-term plan. But
Yeah.
not only that, actually ensure that after the administration of President Aquino ends, that the next administration will adopt that particular plan.
So that's
And
that-
where private sector
Yeah.
comes in. That's where Architect Palafox comes in and reminds the next administration,
yeah,
hey,
we'll keep reminding. Yeah.
you cannot just start anew again. You
Yeah.
have to
Yeah.
continue. Otherwise, we will, commit the same mistakes
Yeah,
again.
because for the next 20,000 hours or 840 days, it's the immediate action and short term.
Right.
The medium term and long term, it will be carried by
But the next administration.
That's why the concept of having development sponsors from the private sector is very
Yes.
good. Hopefully, these big business conglomerates will shepherd the next administration and shepherding these local governments.
Yes. Let's clear something in the room, Architect Palafox. When we talk about Typhoon Yolanda, people, the thing that comes out into mind would be Tacloban. But you corrected me a while ago that the assistance and the consultancy you've actually rendered is not only limited to Tacloban but to also other LGUs. Can you share with us
like
the other places?
several mayors spoke to me for help, like man-made disaster, Zamboanga.
Right.
Earthquake, Tagbilaran. The mayor spoke to me also. Then in Leyte, Dulag, Tanawan, Palo, Tacloban. I may have forgotten some. They approached me also. And they're also development sponsors, foundations. Then in Samar, Giwan approached me also, the mayor, but I
Right.
think some development sponsors are taking care of it.
Right.
And Basay, and we're working with the ABS-CBN Foundation and Basay, yeah, and Dulag. So, and the Vatican, it's not Pope Francis, the Vatican also informed me that they will need my help
Wow.
to put up a center in Palo. I don't know what kind of center, but
Wow.
it's because Palo is the religious center of the Eastern Visayas.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So we're talking about post-Typhoon Yolanda reconstruction, rehabilitation, and urban planning. And we've talked about moving houses further from the sea, above the floodlines. We've talked about the bunk houses and that there are minimum standards. There are minimum international standards which we all know to be in the Sphere Handbook
Yeah.
that wasn't followed maybe accidentally by government. And it's good that you pointed that out, that there are minimum standards like the size should not be small,
Yeah.
that it's going to be cramped inside, and
Gender sensitive.
it has to be gender sensitive. It has to be large enough to restore the dignity of the family. There has to be a kitchen garden so that they can,
Grow their own food.
right? What happens next? What are the next immediate steps with regard to urban planning, let's say for Tacloban?
Right now, we're all waiting for the PDA, post-disaster assessment,
All right.
by scientists, because they will have to establish the flood lines away from earthquake fault line, away from landslides,
Okay.
and so on. I'm hoping, like, I'm just guesstimating now, if Tacloban, let's say, was the built-up area was 1,400 hectares, so maybe we should look for another 1,400 hectares on the high ground.
Right.
As of yesterday, what I heard is they only have 67 hectares. So it's not enough. So maybe what we should do now is the old Tacloban and the new Tacloban, the old Palo and the new Palo.
Right.
And
It doesn't
build them
exactly
high.
mean, because when I was there and I learned from the local government that they are going to move further north.
Yeah,
But I didn't know that the resettlement area was not big enough.
yeah,
So instead of closing the old Tacloban, they can coexist together.
yeah. They can be like old Manila and new Makati. Yeah, and also government like we've done work in Khartoum along the River Nile. We had a record of 500 years of flooding.
Okay.
In the Netherlands, 1,000 years of flooding.
Okay.
In our country, until recently, 25 years lang. That's why when Ondor came, our drainage system was under capacity because
Yes.
designed only for 25-year flooding.
Yes.
And I heard the Public Works had raised it to 100 years. So all of this, we need the scientists now to tell us which is where is safe to build. And I think we should help our scientists to have the right kind of expertise and equipment, and we're losing them to overseas.
The scientists doing the post-disaster assessment, are they government scientists or are they private sector scientists?
Government and some help from private. Yeah, and I think there should be a way to incentivize them to stay.
Yes.
Like looking for the fourth line in Bohol, I think they only had one transportable radar
Right.
for the whole island. So I think this should be prioritized. Like
Right.
our weather bureau people, we're losing them also. They're migrating out because they need better incentives to stay, and not just for their wages and salaries, but better equipment.
Right.
But we're glad many of our friendly nations, they're all helping us. Yeah.
All right. Architect Palafox, the time we have here in the show is not enough to fully discuss what can be done after disaster. Actually, I wanted to ask you, how about in terms of electricity? A lot of we didn't have electricity.
Yeah.
Tacloban didn't have electricity after for so many days.
Until now, it's 5%
Right.
lighted.
And there are talks that the cable should be underground. Is that good policy? Is
Yeah.
that bad policy? I wanted to talk to you about water and
Yeah.
how do we ensure there's access to water?
Most of my work underground utilities, because even now the what do you call this, the cold weather in Canada and the U.S.,
Yes.
those that had overhead wires,
Yes.
they lost electricity. The community, those that were underground electricity, they were able to save it. And most of our work since 1977, underground.
So that should be the next.
Our work in Dubai, Rockwell,
Right.
they're all underground.
Underground.
Underground, yeah. It can be done. So really, the Build Back Better should not just be a slogan. We should walk the talk.
We hope this won't be the last time we talk with you here on Philippines Uncut, and I hope that next time Buddy Kunanan can continue asking you what else we can do to be disaster resistant in the
Yeah.
future. And on behalf of Buddy Kunanan, I'd like to thank you for gracing our episode on post-disaster rehabilitation. Thank you very much, Architect Palafox. And that's our show for this evening. Again, I am Chris Ablan. I'm a guest host, and I'm subbing in for Buddy Kunanan. We hope that you learned a lot from this evening's episode. Thank you and good evening. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.